Welcome to the annual performance of Just Us Performance Troupe. The students sitting behind me came from all over campus to enroll in COM 211, Storytelling and Culture. Throughout this semester, they have spent time learning the communication studies method, autoethnography. And what autoethnography tells us is before you start researching other people, before you start researching other cultures, you need to stop, research yourself, know your story, how the different stories you've lived have created who you are in the culture that you're in. Just Us is a performance troupe in pursuit of social justice. Social justice means every person, no matter what body they're in or where they are located in our culture, has the opportunity to reach their utmost potential. Every story you hear tonight was lived through the body that tells it. These are their stories. This is their show. I've been honored to be their director and their professor. Please stay for a conversation with the cast after the show.
What is social justice?
Fighting for the opportunity for all cultural members to safely pursue their full potential.
So that everyone has a chance and support to realize the best version of themselves.
Without having to overcome stigma.
Or fight systems of oppression.
When I was young, I was like 4 feet tall and like 210 pounds. I kind of looked like when you put an image on a Word document, but you want to resize it. But instead of dragging from the corners, you just drag from the top, and then it just looks like a smushed mess. Kids are really honest, and they're mean. And if you're really fat, kids are really mean. I found that the only way I could really make friends is if I were funny. No one would really be laughing at how I just waddled along when I was running if I was making jokes. I beat everyone to making fun of me by just making fun of myself first. Humor was my defense mechanism. No one could really get to know me and dislike me if I was never serious. Honestly though, being fat in itself is pretty comical. Like I couldn't do simple physical tasks without panting and sweating and just getting gross. Like you would think that walking up a flight of stairs was like running a triathlon the way I needed 8 hours to recover from it. I would make jokes about it though, and people would think it was funny, and then they think I was funny. The best way to just deal with all the mean people was to just laugh along with them. In a society that values appearance and superficial things, joking was how I fit in. Now, since then, I got a little taller, I lost a little weight, but the lessons of comedy still stick with me. I use humor to deal with everything. So when I was in high school and I was diagnosed with clinical depression, I handled that the only way I knew how, by turning all of it into a joke. The best way to talk to my friends and family about what was going on inside my head was just to make a joke about it. No one could really get mad at me for being the human embodiment of a cloudy day if I was making them laugh with my sarcastic observations first. I found that humor is not only my way of dealing with the really shitty things, but it's also how I connect with people. According to the Anxiety and Depression Association of America, approximately 3.3 million American adults are affected by depression every year.
I'm 18. I got the job. I thought, I've made it. I'm gonna work really hard and I'm gonna be the first person at work every day. I was working for an international corporation and I was gonna move up. Each day, I put my nose to the grindstone, and my numbers and stats were skyrocketing. A manager came to me and said that they'd been looking at my numbers and wanted to promote me. Of course, I accepted. And then I would meet him. He was a supervisor and trainer for the department. He'd been with the corporation for some time.
So how'd you get the job?
I guess from working hard.
I'm sure.
I ignored it. Then, over the next several weeks in front of the team, he would say things like,
She's just a baby, don't listen to her.
or,
She should have been a secretary.
I can handle it. I can handle it. One night after work, a bunch of us girls went out for dinner, and they immediately started in on how they thought he was targeting me.
He likes you.
He's always making comments at you.
Guys, I'm planning a wedding. Give me a break. I was engaged to be married, so I ignored it. The next day at work, he and I were training the sales team when he made an outdated instruction, and, well, I said, actually, we need to notate that in the system going forward.
Cool your tits.
Stunned. He said that in front of the whole team, but I ignored it. Later that week, my friend and I were walking into the break room for lunch, and somebody was obviously microwaving broccoli. Better cooked at your neighbor's house, as they say. It stinks.
Maybe if Amber closed her legs, it'd smell a lot better.
My face went hot. Tears welled up in my eyes. I backed him off. I sat down to eat. Why was he doing this to me? Well, I left the break room in a hurry. And later I was approached by a female member of HR. She was a manager and, well, she was friendly with him. I knew this.
What's going on? What seems to be the problem?
I can't take it anymore. It's constant comments. Other people have noticed, and I'm tired of it. I would go on to tell her the various things that he had said.
Well, there will be a full investigation. I'll need a statement from you and names of a couple witnesses.
Okay, I wrote my witness statement in what seemed like seconds, and I wrote down the names of the coworkers and my work friend. They all had been there. Only one day later, that same HR manager would come to me and ask me to step into the hallway. He was in the hallway, waiting, his arms folded across his chest. She would stand next to him, and they would face me. Friends first, right? I would not look at him.
We finished our investigation and we found no fault on him. The witnesses claim they didn't hear or say anything. I think it's possible that you're confused, or maybe you like him. Could that be?
No, they were there. He said those things in front of them.
Well, they didn't want to testify. So we're transferring you to a new team, effective Monday. Any questions?
I was frozen. Thoughts running through my mind. I have an apartment. I have bills to pay. I'm only 18. What do I do? No, I have no questions. I would walk back to where my team was, back toward the cubicles, back toward my work friend. All of their eyes were on the ground. No eye contact. No eye contact. Nothing. Enough. I cornered my friend. Why did you lie? You were there.
I can't lose this job. I need this job.
I stared at her blankly. So did I. So I ignored it. 72% of workers have experienced mistreatment or harassment, have not reported it, while 40% of those people said they didn't report it because they didn't want to be seen as a troublemaker. Career Builder Survey.
You're retarded. This is retarded. That's retarded. The R word, a word that I honestly hate to hear people say. So I used to work a really early morning shift. I'd wake up at 3:30 in the morning and I'd get to work by 4. And honestly, I'm not a coffee drinker, so I never really had that much energy to talk to anybody in the first place. But the job was really easy. So every morning I'd get there with a bunch of other guys, and there'd be a truck that'd come every morning with like 2,000 upwards to 4,000 boxes. It honestly just depended on the day. It could be a holiday, there could be a lot more. But we'd all sit here in the box or stand here, and the boxes would come off the truck onto a conveyor belt, and we would grab them and have to put the correct box on the pallet behind us. But if we missed a box that needed to go right here, would end up way down there, and this could get a little hectic at times. And then just after a few days of working there, I noticed a trend going on.
Alright, well, this is retarded.
Man, you're retarded.
You guys are both retarded.
Everyone just loved to call each other the R word. And honestly, I hate this word. I really wanted to say something, but I always told myself it was early, I was tired. Maybe these guys, they're all older than me. Maybe they've just been saying it their whole life. But eventually, it happened where somebody decided to call me the R word.
Logan, man, you're retarded.
I looked at him straight in the face and I said, the next time you want to call me the R word, maybe you should use it the right way. In this case, Logan, you going slow, it's retarding the process of us all getting the job done. I said, any other way you use it, it's honestly rude and it's disrespectful, especially to those with intellectual and developmental disabilities. He didn't say anything, he honestly just stared at me and we never talked again, but I just had to let him know that by him insisting that I was retarded, he's basically saying that somebody who does have intellectual or developmental disabilities, that they wouldn't be able to get the job done the same way. In 2006, the American Association on Mental Retardation changed their name. So now it's actually the American Association on Intellectual and Developmental Disabilities. There was also a survey taken where 90% of people said that they've heard somebody else refer to somebody as a retard, and 50% of the time, it was towards somebody who did actually have an intellectual or a developmental disability. Thank you.
I remember the first day walking into that class. They called it CA, which stood for Curriculum Assistance. Now, this class was located on the 4th floor of the high school, which was away from the majority of the other students. This classroom had a total of 5 students in it. And another thing to point out was this classroom was about half the size of a normal classroom. It was a lot smaller. And like the desks had writing on them, the walls had writing on them. Everything in this classroom was damaged, including me. Damaged. I felt damaged in a way. I felt broken. I felt like I wasn't good enough. I was placed in this classroom because I hated school my whole life. I just wasn't good at it. It wasn't for me. I wasn't interested in it. And when they first put me in this class, I hated it so much. I was embarrassed to be in it, and I didn't want anyone to see me in this classroom. And that just made my confidence a lot worse. And then I met Kenny. Kenny was a senior in this classroom while I was a terrified freshman. Now, this classroom was 90 minutes long, and every day, Monday through Friday, Kenny would give us a show. He would talk to us, he would talk to the teachers, he would tell us about his day, what he likes, what he doesn't like. He even had his own catchphrase, who would have knew? What kind of class is this, I asked myself. For the first time in my life, these teachers are actually encouraging me to talk. These teachers are actually encouraging me to just walk around the room, you know, and like acting things out and performing. Oh man, drawing cartoons on the whiteboard. These teachers are okay with me telling jokes and stories and just like uncontrollably laughing on the floor. This is school. Sign me up for this. I'm different. I guess I'm weird. And you know what? That's okay. I have ADD. And that's fine. Hey, math, really hard for me to do. And that's fine. I would rather watch the same movie 15 times than try to watch a new one. And that's cool too. I'm probably not gonna be a doctor or a lawyer or a professional athlete, and that's fine. I'm gonna be me. And guess what? 6.4 million American children between the ages of 4 and 17 are diagnosed with ADHD. You are not alone.
What is autoethnography? The study of culture through the study of oneself.
Of the stories we choose to tell based on the lives we've lived.
Through the bodies that we're in.
And the experiences we share.
I grew up as an ordinary kid, except for the fact that my mom's gay, which kind of complicates things when you're in elementary school and kids are always asking where your dad is, or when they don't really know what being gay is, or when you have to explain the process of sperm donation, which is kind of confusing for an 8-year-old. And I also got asked lots of awkward questions, such as,
which one is your real mom?
Well, they both are. This was a joint decision.
So does that mean that you're gay?
No, sexual orientation isn't just something you can pass on to someone else.
So, what's it like?
That one was always hard for me because I don't know any different. And my favorite question of all.
You know your mom's going to hell, right?
Why don't we pick up a Bible, Becky? Because that's not exactly what it says. Not having a dad did suck at times. I found my identity in the fact that I had two moms and that I didn't have a dad. I remember the first time I was really mad at the situation I was in. I wanted to go to the father-daughter dance at school, but I couldn't. And I realized in that moment that I wasn't just missing that one dance, but I was missing all of them. And the one at my wedding, and just simply being walked down the aisle by my father. I was stripped of a lot of things that people took for granted, and I was mad about it. Flash forward to high school, gay marriage was on the verge of being legalized, and the room was divided as to whether or not gay marriage was something to be celebrated. But I knew that it was. I was thinking about my mom getting married one day, or the fact that if she didn't want to, it was her choice and no one else's. I'd finally realized all that I had gained by having gay parents. I knew how to have an open heart, an open mind, and open arms. I knew how to embrace people that were different than me. Actually, no. Just because you're attracted to someone that I'm not doesn't really make you that different at all. A National Health and Social Life survey found that roughly 9 million children in America have gay parents.
I've always prided myself in the respect that I have for other people, especially women. And I really believe that I'm a good person, and I've surrounded myself with friends of the same mindset. Having a twin sister growing up, I got close with a lot of her friends. Me and my friends would hang out with Helen and her friends on a regular basis, daily. Some of them even go to school with me today. Kat and Miranda and I get lunch every single Wednesday just to keep that friendship going. I also love meeting new people and having fun. I think that there's a lot of fun things to do, but parties are my favorite. Earlier this year, my fraternity threw a pretty big party at my house. There were guys, girls, games. It was a lot of fun, a lot of people. In the sea of strangers that was my house, I came across a girl that was not so unfamiliar. We happened to make eye contact and met each other halfway. Turns out she just transferred here and wanted to make friends. So I introduced her to a lot of my friends that I thought she would get along well with. We talked for a bit and she mentioned that she was thirsty and I offered her a drink. We were both 21, in case anybody was wondering. Quickly she said she wanted some alcohol since she was at a party scene. So naturally, I told her to follow me and showed her where the bar was. I skipped to the front of the line trying to show off and be cool and got a drink for both me and her. We talked for a bit more. I noticed that she wasn't really drinking her drink. By the time I finished my drink, I noticed that she hadn't really had a sip at all. On the way back from getting another drink for myself from the bar, I noticed that she was pouring hers out and respectfully asked why. And she looked me dead in the eyes and said,
"Because I heard you spiked your drinks, and I'm not trying to get taken advantage of like that."
I was shocked. See, I knew this girl very well. We grew up together, hung out on a daily basis, and she really thought that I would do that to her because of a stigma about fraternities. Bad people are out there, but they're just that, individuals, not entire organizations, and not all men. Because of what some men do, women end up scared of all of us, even the ones they know, even the ones that are safe. According to the National Crime Victimization Survey, among undergraduate students, 23.1% of females and 5.4% of males experience rape or sexual assault due to physical force, violence, and incapacitation.
Fifth grade. I can't breathe, I can't eat, I can't sleep. I'm terrified. My whole body starts shaking, which makes me more anxious. My dad couldn't make sense of it, and I would never want him to be able to. I mean, it's hard to make sense of your child worrying themselves until they're physically ill or forcing themselves to fall asleep to escape fear. My mom, having firsthand experience with anxiety, knew our options and ultimately knew what helped her through her anxiety.
I go through it too, honey. We're gonna get you some help.
Initially, neither of my parents wanted to put me on medication. I mean, all stigmas aside, it's no easy decision to get someone on an antidepressant, especially when you have to make that decision for your child. Pointing at the stress face on the "how are you feeling today" every day in therapy wasn't sending me home anxiety-free. My doctor started urging my parents to get me on medication as my weight was decreasing and our stressful days just seemed limitless. Therapy really seemed like a pathetic attempt at a happy playtime, and our last hope kind of seemed to be our best choice. Ultimately, I don't view as my anxiety medication now as a placebo or even a crutch, but as essential to minds like mine as a cast would be to someone who has a broken arm. According to CDC, only 6 out of 10 kids between the ages of 7 and 13 seek treatment for their anxiety and depression.
Flashback to 7th grade. Puberty hitting me harder than my classes. Kids have their convictions. I remember a kid by the name of Eric threw a quarter at my glasses saying, "Hey Jew boy, catch." Something inside me, inside of this violence, this anger, it came out of me. His friends laughing at me. I attacked him. Needless to say, my reward in his class was 2 days of ISS. I remember his father approaching me from the principal's office saying, "Only the devil throws the first punch." I thought America was a melting pot. That is, his ideas were just trying to boil me bleach. Flash forward to 18 years old. I'm living in Israel, working on a kibbutz, volunteering for the IDF. I remember looking up at the Wailing Wall, writing a note to God himself, or themselves, and saying, "I hope you're real." What would God say to Eric or his father? I don't know. But inside, I just hope I'm making my Holocaust surviving grandfather proud. I remember he had a tattoo on his arm. He always told me this one phrase, "Ani lo mispar," I am not a number. "Anachnu lo misparet," we are not numbers. I will not subjugate myself to your past propaganda. I will only look forward to the future. 15% of American citizens believe the Holocaust never happened.
Why did you all decide to take this class?
To get better at public speaking.
To explore what it means to be human with fellow creatives.
I could sense it was something worth learning.
To practice storytelling with authenticity and intention.
Hazing is everywhere. It's in the workforce, it's in fraternities and sororities, and in the military. Hazing is what's supposed to make you stronger, right? Joining the military, I was blindsided by this. In basic training, it made sense to break down the recruit and strengthen their character. Hazing is different. I was promoted as a non-commissioned officer and NCO. After my promotion, I knew it was coming. This is the part where I got brutally beaten. My fellow NCOs lined up. Each of them kneed me in the thighs, punched my collarbones with the corporal insignias, penetrating my skin. I had blood all over my shirt. I eventually blacked out. This hazing tradition is known as blood stripes. It refers to the red stripes down each side of the uniform's trousers. I just accepted the hazing because I just followed the other NCOs, and it was tradition. I couldn't walk for the past couple days following the event. All the higher ranking officers within the company talked to all the Marines about hazing and told us not to do it. It was stupid and wrong. It could lead to death, and it has, yet it continues. When it came time for another Marine to receive their promotion, I decided not to be a part of it. Just because I went through it, that doesn't mean that others should. This tradition isn't good for anyone. I took a stand, yet it continues. But change's got to start somewhere, saying no. According to New York Times, hazing instances grew worse following the 9/11 terrorist attacks as a wave of recruits flooded all U.S. branches of the military. Thank you.
Wait for it. Take a deep breath. You ready? I was homeschooled.
That's it?
Yeah, that's all. But please realize it scares me to stand out. It does. It scares me. But I'm here today bravely to break that mold. As a homeschooler, I was blessed with an insanely amazing childhood. There were and always will be reactions, stereotypes, and assumptions the people give me that sometimes they make me laugh and sometimes they make me question how they even mustered up the courage to ask me face to face.
So does this mean you just get to sleep in every day?
Have you ever been to real school?
Do you even have a prom?
Well, to answer all those questions, because I know you're all now wondering, yeah, I did get to sleep in, but I still had my fair share of coursework. Before college, if real school is a synonym of public school, no, I had never been. And yeah, girl, you better believe I was out there shopping for a dang good prom dress for the homeschool prom. But people have their assumptions. Typically, I find homeschoolers pretty chill though, and willing to talk about their experiences. I mean, I had it pretty good. A tight relationship with my teacher, hey mom. A pretty understanding one with my principal, hey dad. I even made valedictorian in my class. But ultimately, we just want to be labeled as normal high schoolers, just like everyone else, even if we're a little bit above average. That's a quick assumption too. The fact of the matter is, my parents sacrificed so much to give me the childhood I had. They surrounded me with amazing friends so that I could feel supported. They trusted me with my schoolwork so that I could build self-management skills. They gave up finances, they poured in time, they dedicated themselves to me and my betterment just so that I could be educated in a way they knew was going to help me succeed. I'm honestly a little ashamed just thinking about the fact that sometimes I'm still afraid to say I was homeschooled. 850,000 children were homeschooled in 1999. 20 years later, we're still here, and the homeschooling movement has ballooned to estimates of more than 2 million. Homeschooling made a huge difference in my life. My parents, I can't tell you how much that has had an impact on me. I was blessed the day they decided to homeschool me, and I wouldn't have me any other way. According to a 2017 analysis published by the Odyssey, homeschoolers are one of the many groups that are often stereotyped. People often think they are awkward, shy, and/or socially inept, but statistics say otherwise. When compared to children in the traditional school system, homeschoolers are often just as sociable and score higher on all standardized tests across the board.
Well, I'm not insecure about very many things in this life, but my body's one of them. I know I'm not clinically obese, and some of you probably don't even think I'm overweight, but the fact is I still struggle to love my body. When I was a kid, I was always big. I was tall and heavy. And when I was real young, some of the kids would poke fun at me some, but I don't really recall any instances where their words traumatized me. My insecurity was more based off social norms. I combated this insecurity by trying to be as friendly as I could, especially to other kids who seemed like outsiders. I would use humor to cheer them up and kindness to help them feel more comfortable. Over time, I became a pretty well-liked guy in my peer group. Sure, some of the older kids would still bully and try to assert their dominance with some insults, but I chose to focus my attention more on the people who treated me with kindness. By the end of elementary school, my friends would call me the Big Squeeze. I would never be part of the pretty popular rich kid cliques, but I had found my place as a kind and generous person. I carried this outsider perspective through middle school and into high school. At the beginning of middle school, I started getting into heavy metal music, and I started wearing a lot of black, but I was still kind to the people around me. I also got into countercultural movements, and specifically the psychedelic revolution of the 60s and 70s. Between the end of middle school and the beginning of high school, I had, let's say, a divine moment of truth. I dove headfirst into an awakening of my consciousness, an expansion of my perspective on reality, and I gained deeper insight into the nature of life. From this experience, I decided to turn vegetarian. At the time, I was 5'11" and I weighed 210 pounds. During that freshman year of high school, I lost 40 of those pounds and traded all my black clothes in for as many colors and patterns as I could find. I finally felt good about my body. I was slim, I was pretty. Fast forward to the end of high school, I had a falling out with my parents. I moved out, and I started smoking cigarettes, a habit normalized by my smoking mother. For the next decade, I smoked about half a pack a day, and the tobacco helped suppress my appetite, which helped keep me skinny, even after I quit being a vegetarian. I maintained 170 pounds at 6 feet tall for 10 years. I felt really good about my body, and I really enjoyed fitting into medium-sized shirts. 2 years ago, I quit smoking. It's one of the best decisions of my life. My mouth tastes better, I don't smell like cigarettes all the time, and I get to stay inside all winter. I also started gaining weight. As of my writing this, I've put on 65 pounds since quitting tobacco. And I outgrew all of my old clothes, and I've had to start buying a new wardrobe. I've been working on stages all during this time, so I'm back to wearing black all the time. And now, at 30 years old, I'm back in college, surrounded by all these beautiful, young, athletic people. The only thing maintaining my sense of security is that I'm in a committed relationship with the most beautiful, kind, and generous woman that I have ever met. And together, we work together to lead healthy lives. I don't have to be skinny to be beautiful anymore. I can just be myself, the big squeeze. According to the CDC and the National Institute of Health Statistics, 49% of those surveyed had tried to lose weight in the last year. Thank you.
When I was little, I did not like to read. My dad would sit me down on the couch and I'd squirm and complain just to get out of reading, but he wasn't going to take no for an answer. So he pretty much bribed me into reading by giving me gummy bears and Skittles just to pronounce a word right. By the time I was in middle school, he'd stick a $10 bill in the back of a book just to get me to read it. Sure, he was tricking me into reading, but it really did help me learn, and eventually I loved to read. I remember my first big girl book, Little House on the Prairie. It was like this thick. I didn't think I could finish it, but my parents encouraged me a lot. So when I finally finished that last page, I ran to their room to tell them, and we celebrated, and I just felt so proud of myself. I've been a reader ever since. So when I graduated high school, I volunteered to be a reading buddy at an underprivileged middle school. You're probably thinking, don't middle schoolers already know how to read? Yes, but some of them really struggle with comprehension. So on the first day, I met my reading buddy. She sized me up and said, "My last reading buddy was cool. We'll see how you do." Gosh, I never felt more like a book nerd, but I was gonna get this girl to read, dang it. We spent an entire semester together, and we never finished a single book. The book lover in me was so disappointed, but I know our time wasn't completely wasted. She would tell me about the drama happening with her friends, about the homework that's been really hard, and I even helped her fill out a beta club application. I did try to get her to read, but she would say things like, "This don't make no sense." I felt so heartbroken for her. She didn't have anyone in her life encouraging her, so that's what I did. I just gave her advice and told her how amazing she was. So at the end of the semester, we had an ice cream party for all the reading buddies. I was serving the sprinkles and the chocolate chips, and she was too cool to acknowledge me in front of her friends. I was used to it by then. But at the end of the party, as I was cleaning up, all the students were leaving, she came up to me and said, with the biggest smile on her face,
"Brittany, I got the AB honor roll."
"Yes, that's my girl." She was not getting A's and B's when I met her, and she was so excited to tell me. Man, I was so lucky to have parents that encouraged me and valued my education. Everyone deserves that, and not everyone gets it. But when they do, it makes all the difference. According to the educational psychologist, a study of 14,000 students found that 82% who failed an English course in the 6th grade had not graduated by the time the study had ended. Thank you.
Tell us where these stories come from. What questions did you answer?
Tell a story of when you witnessed social injustice.
Tell a time you stopped social injustice from happening, or when you could have, but you didn't.
What is it like to live in the body you're in right now?
I can't count the amount of times I've had a friend tell me, when I first met you, I thought you were going to be so basic. Unfortunately, I've been mislabeled for a long time. My junior year of high school, I had a lot of rough things happen at home, and combined with all the pressure I constantly felt to appear perfect and happy, my life pretty much came crashing down, and I became extremely depressed. So I stopped going to school. And once I had accumulated over 160 missed class periods, I was finally called into the principal's office. I knew as I was walking down to her office that day, the judgment I was about to face was not going to be easy to hear. What I wanted her to ask me was what might have been going on at home, or how she maybe could have helped me, But instead, all she told me was that I was just a lazy kid that she sees all the time, and I kind of needed to step it up if I ever wanted to be anything in life. And she turned out to be just another person that assumed she knew who I was right away. Now I've accepted the fact that my personality and values aren't going to be the first thing people notice about me. But that's okay, because I know I have something to offer to the world that first impressions from others could never take away. Studies show that people form a first impression of you within the first 7 seconds of meeting you.
When I was a little girl, I struggled a lot. I was always a lot slower than everybody else. I zoned out a lot, I had extreme mood swings, my handwriting was atrocious, and ever since I can remember, waking up was hell. If you've ever had an exhausting day beforehand and then slept like 30 minutes and woken up, that's what it felt like every time I woke up. But being my parents' first kid, they didn't know what to expect. They thought I was just a kid being a kid. When I got to grade school, it became a lot more apparent that something was wrong. Assignments that took most kids 10 minutes took me an hour. I was always getting sick. I would throw up if I ate too much. My parents put me in a class to try to improve my handwriting, and it did nothing. So at 9 years old, I went to the doctor. I still remember the doctor's name, Dr. Vo. There were all sorts of tests and all sorts of theories, everything from ADD to cancer. After about a dozen blood tests, one finally landed. Hypothyroid. My handwriting was bad because my hands were shaky, and I was exhausted and sick all the time because my body didn't know how to turn food into energy. This was surprising because hypothyroidism usually shows up in people around 40 to 50. I was 9. I remember I kept mixing it up with hypothermia. My mom, being a first-generation Vietnamese American, didn't trust Western medicine. She didn't want me on some pill I'd get stuck on for the rest of my life. So we started with Chinese medicine. I hated that medicine. My friends and I used to make a game out of trying to describe the right way it tasted.
It's like roadkill left out in the sun.
Whew, or peed on by a coyote. Oh my goodness. And blended up into a drink.
Pretty accurate. So once a month, my dad would make the 45-minute drive to go get that medicine I hated so much. And he made every single one of those weekends awesome. We'd go to the bead museum, and I'd get new beads for my collection. We'd go to antique shops and comic book shops. I still collect comics books to this day. And we'd always go to the same German restaurant. I'd always get latkes, and he always got a giant German pretzel for us to share. That medicine worked for a while. I wasn't as tired, my mood swings weren't as extreme, and my appetite was back and trying to make up for lost time. But after about a year, I started feeling more lethargic again. It wasn't working anymore. So my parents finally yielded to Western medicine. Synthroid was my introduction. And if I'm being honest with you, I can't tell you the difference anymore between no medicine, Synthroid, and Chinese medicine. But I know that Synthroid really increased my appetite. I was 11 at the time. I was entering middle school. Now, despite being extremely slow, for some reason, my teachers and parents thought I was smart. So the same year I switched medicine, I switched into an extremely strict college preparatory charter school. In hindsight, that was a terrible idea. Not only was I quickly becoming overweight, I was still extremely slow. I just kept failing at everything. I never finished a single quiz, test, or in-class assignment. On my 6th grade chemistry final, I peed my pants. I was so afraid to get rid of any of the precious time I had. I still didn't finish. That year introduced me to depression and anxiety and suicidal thoughts. Just so fun. After that, I switched schools. I met a really, really nice teacher who introduced me to the 504, which, if you don't know, is a legal document that gets you accommodations like extra time on tests, and it is the only reason I passed high school. The year after that, I switched states, and in 8th grade, I had a teacher tell my mom she thought I was faking my hypothyroid, despite the 504 and various doctor notes. And in 9th grade, my parents fought the uphill battle to get me on Tyrosint. It was brand new at the time. I must have been amongst the first to try it. My mom went through multiple doctors who refused to prescribe it for no reason other than I've never prescribed it before. A couple of medication adjustments later, some IV bags full of nutrients, and the addition of a second pill, and my body is generally fixed. I mean, waking up is not as bad. I'm not as tired anymore. Oh, and I can use my laptop to write and draw. I still deal with a couple things on a daily basis. If I miss a pill, I feel like crap. I'm still exhausted, anxiety and depression still hang around, and I'll always be a little bit overweight. But hypothyroidism doesn't define me anymore. When I was a little kid, I used to always ask, why me? Why do I have to have hypothyroidism? It's not fair. But to be honest now, if somebody presented me with a button that could erase hypothyroidism from my past, I'm not sure if I would press it. For better or for worse, it's made me who I am. According to Disability World, 10% of Americans can be defined as having an invisible disability.
We all make choices, some good, some bad. About a year ago, I was really good friends with this girl, and we would hang out 4 or 5 times a week. We'd get meals together, watch movies together, all the sort of fun stuff that friends do, right? Well, at some point I caught feelings, which I guess is something you're not supposed to do, and the idiot that I am, and as awkward as I am, and as self-conscious as I am, I decided to tell her over text message at 1 in the morning while more than a little intoxicated. And it was wrong. I regretted it immediately, and to tell you the truth, I don't exactly remember what I wrote because immediately after I sent it, I deleted it off my phone in horror. I now just have vague memories of rambling off some sort of vague confession of, attraction. But anyways, it was completely unfair to her, and I did everything I could to make things right, apologize, and move forward. But as it tends to happen, things got blown out of proportion. One text message turned into a litany of terrible, unspeakable things that I had done over the years, none of which were true. People, my friends, stopped talking to me, would spread cruel lies, and I was even interrogated within my campus ministry for my actions. People judged me without even asking me anything. And to be honest, I absolutely deserved some sort of social punishment for the idiotic choices I made. But I don't think I deserve to, quote one of my close friends at the time, have my balls cut off for what I did. And to tell the truth, none of that does great things to a person who's been diagnosed with mood swings and depressions for a couple of years. You go to a dark place, a really dark place, and there's no one left to talk to because no one's willing to talk to you. Until things get so dark and twisted and ugly in my own mind that I had to go to the one person this all started with and say, look, you don't have to like me, but I'm asking you to treat me like a human being because I am in so much pain and hurt and I don't know how to handle it. And she said to me,
No, I can't.
One text message. And in a way, that was a form of release because if she wasn't ever going to forgive me or stop spreading lies and I was already tearing myself apart and having nightmares every night, something had to stop somewhere. I either had to forgive myself and move forward and be a better person or end it all because of all this pain boiling inside of me. I made my choice. According to a national study, 89% of people sent a text message while intoxicated. 43.6% said they had regrets or felt guilt over what they had sent. Thank you.
Understanding my mind and the tightrope line that walks between privilege and humanity. How many times do I have to get to know the real me, the big squeeze, or my own personal superhero before I understand the social injustice experience? That truth, that unfortunate truth, comes from people, these people, who turned their demons into playmates and injustices into awarenesses, owning the path to discover yourself. Growth and forgiveness, civility and respect, reaching out of yourself to create a path for others. Shattering molds seemingly sanctioned for certain types of people, shattering perceptions, a breakthrough, shattering stigmas, shattering your perception. This has been a Just Us performance in pursuit of social justice and COM 211 storytelling and culture. My name is Megan Lavacri. I was fortunate enough to be assistant director of these wonderful humans, and I invite you to please stay for a question and answer. Thank you.